Hey everyone, it's Grady from SUBOVERLAND, and in this video I'll be going over which 3/4 ton Suburban is the best one to get. Let's get right into it. Yes, on this video I wanted to go over the 3/4 ton generations. If you guys don't know what a 3/4 ton is or what I'm saying, you can also call it a 2500. It is the more heavy duty version of the Suburban or a pickup truck or whatever you're doing there. So regularly it's a half ton 1500, also known as 1500. Then it goes to a 3/4 ton. Then if you have a pickup, you can get a 1 ton. You can get so that's a 3500, and then you can go all the way up to, there's a 4500, 5500. You get the gist. But in the Suburban, they had 3/4 tons available up until the year 2012, I believe. And so, in beginning, I am not positive if they had them pre-73, so the 7th gen. But today we're going over a 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th generation 3/4 ton and what would be the right one to choose. So this is a 7th gen. This is an 88 Suburban. It's a 3/4 ton. If you're wondering how to tell a 3/4 ton, if you have no idea what's going on here, it'll go, obvious way to tell is the lug nuts. So it'll have 8 instead of 6 on the Suburbans. So this has 8. Don't mind the hideous wheels. I'm going to get rid of these at some point. But so the 3/4 tons, they will have an 8 lug wheel. They'll have a heavier duty transmission. They will have a leaf spring in the rear axle versus a coil spring on the later gens. We'll go over that. But main differences are going to be your rear axle is going to be bigger, heavier duty transmission, and then sometimes they'll have a larger engine depending on the gen. We'll also go over that. But for the 7th gen, this has a turbo 400 transmission. Now these are fantastic transmissions, but they are a 3-speed. And 91 was kind of a cool year. They went to a 4L80 for some of the year. And that was a 4-speed transmission that was used in later years. And so a lot of people, if they're looking for a 3/4 ton, like the holy grail is to get a clean 91 with a 4L80. So a lot of people will look for that. And if it has a 454 big block, even better. This particular one, like I said, it's an 88. And it has a 350 small block Chevy V8, and the interiors on the 3/4 tons are not going to be any different. So we're mainly going to talk about drivetrain things, but we will get into different gens. Now if you do like this 7th gen, the 3/4 tons are fantastic. Really, that Turbo 400 is one of my favorite transmissions ever made. They're great. They rarely break. If they do break, they're super easy to repair. Now on this gen in general, very easy to repair. Parts are cheap and accessible still. They're fantastic. These are also called square bodies. If you guys are wondering that too, there's a couple of nicknames for these as we go along. And also the big kicker on this gen, so 73 to 91, it's the longest generation of Suburban. There's tons of these on the road for good reason. They're just fantastic. And they had a front and rear solid axle. Now, why would you want a solid front axle versus a independent like later years? If you're going to want to go bigger tires or just have, again, more robust. If you want to have, more ability to have bigger tires, there's just some good positives for a front axle. A lot of people actually like working on them better. You can beef them up easier. There's some great things going on with the front axle. So for the 7th gen, if you're into the square body and into this look, and you are wanting a more off-road capable vehicle, then I would say this would be the 3/4 ton for you. They are probably, I would say they're the least reliable out of the 4 we're going to go over. Now that could be, someone's going to comment below. I can just see it, no, they're the best. Yeah, it's fine. But true fuel injection and some other things that we'll go over just made the gens over here just more reliable in a lot of different ways. I still have a sweet spot for the square body and I love them, but really, you're going to lose on a little bit of reliability there, depending on if you're handy or not. So, great gen. Let's go to the next one. So this is the 8th gen Suburban, 92 to 99. And they are also a great year range. These are also called an OBS. And they made a lot of 3/4 tons in this year range. Arguably the most. I would have to look this up, but 92 to 99 was kind of the heyday of bumper pull trailers, and there were more kids being born in the world. And so that equaled, you're going to go and get a bumper pull trailer, like a big one, and so you're going to need a 3/4 ton something. But with trucks, you're maxed out at 6 passengers, so if you want some more space, the Suburban checked the box. And so the 3/4 ton Suburban, this was kind of the heyday, I would say. Comment below if you guys agree or have any other insight, but I would venture to say that these were the most produced 3/4 tons were in the 8th gen. Now they came in a couple different iterations. This one is a 99, so the last year of the 3/4 ton, and it has the big block V8. So it has the 454, the 7.4 liter V8. 92 to 95, they had throttle body injection, like on the later years of the square bodies. And in 96, they went to fuel injection, pure fuel injection, and that's what this one is. And so those are the different iterations, I would say, of the engine. They had 2 options, a 350 or a 454. And also, kind of interestingly enough, the 3/4 tons, they also came in those engines. You could get a 350 or a 454, which was cool. I've had a couple of the 350 3/4 tons, the 5.7 liter, and they're great too. That's a great engine. It has good low end torque and everything, but the big block is superior in a lot of different ways, and we'll probably go over a little bit of that. But as far as baseline, these are great vehicles. I really like them. I've built this one out for my family, so we'll be using it hopefully here a bunch. And axle-wise, you're going to keep the same axle as the earlier years. It's a 14-bolt rear axle, and this one is a full float rear axle. As you can see with this, that's how you can tell it's a full float, and I'll show you a semi-float. My square body is unfortunately a semi-float. Not a huge deal, because I'm not going to be putting big old tires on either of these things. These have 33-inch tires. But the full float, like on my 99, is a stronger axle than the semi-float. So, in case you were wondering. Interior, you just get upgraded everything in a lot of ways. My seat is horrible and needs repaired, but this is the first gen. You could get leather from the factory. Heated seats were an option. Still had power seats. This one was the LT, so it had a lot of the options. It's kind of how the dash looks like. You can see here, this has 208,000 miles. 4-wheel drive. Let's talk 4-wheel drive. This gen is when they switched into a push-button four-wheel drive system, like you can see right here. Instead of, on the floor, like in my square body. Pros and cons. Pros, it's easy. You push a button, and there you go. Cons are sometimes the electronics can get a little wacky, and it's not necessarily the electronics on them. I would say it's the motors. You have a front diff actuator and a transfer case encoder motor. Those can go bad versus if you're having old school and it's just linkage and mechanical and you're letting her rip. So a lot of people actually do not like the push button system. I am fine with it. I'm fine with it. I like it. And they're comfy. All of these are going to have options of 8 passengers, all these Suburbans across the board. So other than that, man, interior, what are some big differences here? AC, cruise, just like prior years. I would say I'd rather drive this gen on the highway. You have airbags, if you care about airbags. 95 was the first year of the airbag in these driver, and then 97 split year kind of. They did passenger and driver in case if that's a big thing to you. Some other big things that came out in the 8th gen, which I like as far as diagnosing goes. This is the first gen where they had OBD2. So in 96, you had OBD2. OBD2 is when you can just plug your scan tool, like a modern scan tool, into the vehicle, and you can collect data. You can do tests. It just made diagnosing a lot easier. And this is the first gen you could do that. So I really do appreciate that. That helps out quite a bit when you're diagnosing. It's still pretty archaic, but it helps out. Versus 7th gen, you're dealing with, very archaic. They had OBD1 on the later gen 87 and up, which is cool. I like it. It works, but OBD2 is just so much more convenient. Fuel economy, you're going to get better fuel economy in this gen than previous gens, I would say, as a whole. That's a 350 V8, less horsepower, less torque, less performance, and worse fuel economy. This 99, you're going to get more horsepower, more torque, better fuel economy, even with the big block versus the small block. So definitely superior in that sense, and it's just a great gen. So I would approve. I would say my clients that go with this gen, it all comes down to, I want to say, the styling on them. We have some clients that really like the OBS body style, and it's not as much. Our next gen is our most popular, but there's still some clients that really like this gen of Suburban, and for styling, and it's like a nostalgia thing, and so I get that. I also like the looks of them, and they're getting more and more rare on the road, so it's kind of fun to roll up in something of this year range. So as far as someone who wants this for their 3/4 ton, I'd say if you want a really affordable big block with the 7.4 and you like the styling, I would say this would be your jam. Okay, on to the 9th gen. Yes, I'm getting that right. So yeah, I can count. So 9th gen, 2000 to 2006 Suburban. Made some pretty cool changes from the previous gen. Engines completely changed. And I forgot to mention, on the previous gen, that had that 4L80 transmission. It's a 4-speed transmission, and which is a great transmission. And all the way up until 2007, 8, they kept that transmission. And so it's a great transmission. So this gen, the 9th gen, also had that same transmission, but they got different engines. So you had the 6.0 V8, and you also had the 8.1. So the 8.1 replaced the 7.4, which is a big block. So your new big block's the 8.1, and then your new small block, instead of the 5.7 for the 3/4 tons, would be the 6.0. This particular one is an 8.1, which are hard to find, and people really love these for a lot of different reasons. The 8.1 version, for obvious reasons, you're getting a lot of horsepower. I think it's right around 300, a little bit under, but a ton of torque. And I don't know the exact specs on these, nor does it, they matter, but when it's all said and done, gearing and how you drive the vehicle are going to be more important than performance and what you really like at this point. I prefer a big block when I'm towing. That low end torque is just great. A lot of people actually are totally fine with a small block, like the 5.7 or the 6.0, and that's fine too. Just what you're going to be using it for. But this is kind of like the quintessential 3/4 ton Suburban. 9th gen, less of these are being made than in the previous gen, and especially with the 8.1. The 8.1, I don't know the exact specs on how, but it's definitely rare, and they were used, so it's hard to find, really pristine low mileage ones. And also across the board here, I forgot to mention suspensions. These are actually all the same tire size. They all have a 33-inch tire, 285, 75, 16. And they've all been made into a base here or less. The square body hasn't, but so our base package. And so that's why they look a little lifted, I would say, right? These aren't just stock anymore. Okay, back to the 9th gen. 9th gen, as a whole, I've always preached that this is arguably the best gen as far as reliability goes. I would also venture to say that they're the easiest to work on. So it's a really good sweet spot for the Suburban. And the 8.1, great engine, 6.0, great engine, lots of parts available. They're everywhere. Again, transmission's great. Interior wise, let's take a little peek here. Now again, this one is built out. We're doing some more work on it, but so don't mind. We're putting a stereo in it and everything. But for these, they kept a lot of the same features of the previous. Seating, you still have leather heated seats as an option. First years of the sunroof as an option, if that matters to you. Power locks, obviously. AC cruise, just like previous. Transmission temperature on the gauge became a thing on the 3/4 tons during this gen, so that's cool. This one's built out, but space-wise, interior is going to be really similar across the board. Square body's a little bit, 7th gen's a little bit bigger, but as a whole, they're very similar. But comfy to drive, same suspension setups, leaf spring in the rear, and independent in the front. So suspension-wise, you're really not changing much between the 8th, 9th, and 10th gen. But engine-wise, if you really want the 8.1, this is your gen. I think 01 to 06 is when they offered the 8.1. They skipped out in 2000. So if you're really after a big block, you've got two options. You've got 8th and 9th gen. And if you really want this style and this gen, then you just got a couple years. And so that's the majority of these going to have a 6.0 V8, which is great too. But if you're really after the 8.1, here it is. And if you want arguably the most reliable out of the bunch, I would put my stamp of approval on this one. When I say reliable, meaning they say like same transmission, like I said, I like these gen of engines a little bit better, personally, than previous. And the interiors are actually easier to work on. Doors, they're just a little bit easier to work on. And so if you're looking for that, I would say this gen would be the way to go. And that brings us to the final gen, the 10th gen Suburban, which is the last gen. This gen in the half-ton version was made from 07 to 14. Now in the 3/4 ton, I just looked it up just to double check, verify, it was actually built to 2013. So 07 to 13. During those years, there were little changes, but for the most part, they stayed extremely similar. This is an 07 version. Has the 4L80 transmission. I believe in 09 is when they went to the 6L80 transmission, so the 6-speed of the heavy-duty transmission here. So those are going to be your main differences during this gen. Now, this is the hardest gen to find a 3/4 ton in, by far. Really uncomparable. I would actually bet my money that it's easier to find an 8.1 previous gen versus finding just a 3/4 ton in this gen. Let me know what you think, but I've had 3 of these in my life of this gen, and I've bought hundreds of Suburbans. So it really is a rare find. And another kind of difficult thing with these is a lot of these, they are military or government use Suburbans when they were built, which means they're going to have different options. And for the most part, they're going to be stripped down, and which I'm not saying that's like awful or anything, but with military and government use, like cop cars and things like that, they'll have low miles and you can get them at auctions and stuff, but they've been idled away their whole life. And so I personally do not like buying cop cars or anything, fire trucks or anything like that. I just stay away from them. They might have low miles, but they're just been idled forever. A lot of engine hours on them. And I'm not saying, if you have one of those, I'm not trying to rag on you or anything. But I personally I'm going to stay away. And so it's really tough to actually find these 3/4 tons in general, but also tough to find them optioned out as a passenger vehicle, especially with good options. So this particular one I just felt really lucky with. It's in 07, and it has a lot of cool options that I will show you here. Now this one is a leather interior, and actually I've had another leather one, but this is heated leather seats, and then it has a couple other options that I liked. Some of these, and you find them, they'll even have like the DVD players and stuff like that, and those ones personally I would jump on that rather than a stripped out model that's been a cop car for a couple different reasons. But they have been idled, and for the most part, whoever bought these were expensive, and so I think they took good care of them. A lot of times you can pick them up from like the original or the second owner. Now they're not cheap. These are not cheap at all. This is the most expensive 3/4 ton Suburban you will buy, but they come with some cool things that I personally like as a daily driver, like this, the power hatch. I know it's not a big deal, and maybe people like old school and they love not having the power, but personally it's nice just to push a button sometimes. And so this is the first gen that will have features like that. So I have the power hatch. You're still going to keep heated seats, sunroof, things like that. Entertainment system. You have in this gen, you're getting backup sensors and starting to get backup cameras from the factory. in this gen. Different upgrades in that sense. Steering wheel controls for the radio. You still get transmission temperature. What else are the differences on these? Those are the main. Interior wise, I personally really like these interiors. There are some things that, just like anything, are going to wear and need replaced. But I like the interiors. And if I was to buy one that was going to be for like daily driver or a lot of highway driving, this is the gen I personally would take. They seem to be a little more quiet and handle better on the highway. Call me crazy or whatever you want. Comment below if you disagree or agree or whatever. But I really like these as a highway cruiser. Now they're still capable off-road. They have the same suspension setup. But as far as just cruising down the road, comfortable, I really like this gen of Suburban is for you. And if you have the money, these things, I would arguably say they're going to hold the value of the best out of all the Suburbans, just because they're so rare. Like in 2013, so the last 3/4 ton Suburban to roll off was over 12 years ago, and they just don't make them anymore. And so this to me is a great gen, and you avoid a lot of the AFM stuff on these first couple years of these that people don't like. Now I wouldn't stray away from getting an AFM engine in the later years. I personally, I'm not. Some people hate it. I am fine with AFM, but anyway, that's something to think about with this gen. So pros on this one are definite. The rarity of it. So I think they hold their value better. And that can also be a con because they're super hard to find. Another pro, I would say, just comfort in highway driving. Now, that was a ton of talking away over here, but I thought I saw I had 4 gens of these and pretty good examples of them. So I'm like, I want to make a good video of the 3/4 ton. Now, why would you want a 3/4 ton? Just in general, a lot of our clients, they think that in the future they may tow something, and so they want to be ready for it. So towing, you're gonna want a 3/4 ton if you're towing anything big. Half tons do fine with certain things, but the 3/4 ton does better, obviously. Another reason why you would want a 3/4 ton is if you just want a more heavy duty, Suburban. So again, you're going to get that heavier duty transmission that lasts longer and actually is more expensive to replace, but lasts longer, and you'll be able to tow bigger loads with it. Hence, heavy duty HD. So everything on it, the axles. So if you want a heavier duty vehicle, then the 3/4 ton is the way to go. Other manufacturers out there, aren't making these, and so that's another thing you can look at. Like, man, like they're just not being made anymore. So if I want a bigger vehicle I can camp out of, then like this is it. Other than like an excursion maybe, but excursions, there's not a lot of them around, and I'm not a Ford guy, so I prefer one of these behind me. Another reason you would want a 3/4 ton, personal reason, is they're fun to drive. They are a little like heavier, and they feel a little heavier when they drive. But especially if you get one with like the big block, they're a riot. More power, more torque. So they're just a riot to drive, comparably to a half ton for the most part. And it's just fun. That's like a fun factor. You don't have to love driving your car necessarily. A lot of people, it's just get them from A to B, or it's their vehicle. But for me, I love the sound of a big block V8. And if you're in that same boat, this is what you got. Almost forgot, in the comments below, write down your favorite gen of Suburban and why. Your favorite, gen or 3/4 ton Suburban, or just in general, what's your favorite gen? And yeah, I'd love to see what you guys, what your input is. And if you have any suggestions or things I missed, feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear it all. Thanks.